everyone. So I am painting a sunflower for kind of a commission, and figured I'd go ahead and tape it for you because we all love sunflowers, and I don't think I've painted any since last year. Some of the supplies I'm using, so I'm using my Meeden Paper, and I have, this is that beginner set of brushes. Look at this. You get like 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. You get like 10 brushes for, I think, $12. They're such a great set. I've been using them for over a year and they're still really good. Of course, I take care of them, and they're all round. I believe they do have a set that is different. You know, not all round brushes, but I'm still really loving these. And I've got my MeiLiang paints. You know, I love, although I'm almost out of some of them, I need to buy some more to refill, but such a great beginner set. They're just, I can't say enough about them every time. And I'm hearing so many good things from you guys, which is really great. I mean, these are a student. If you're selling your work or doing commissions, you know, you might not want to use them because I don't think the light fastness is good, meaning how they will hold up if they were hung up in bright sunlight. I've never seen it fade, but I'm sure they do. Some of the brighter colors, pink is usually has the worst light fastness, but we're not using pink today. Then I've got my little Meeden ceramic palette. Love Meeden, thank you. And I've got my Meeden ceramic wells of water, one to wash, one to rinse. And I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be using, or I'm going to be using my gold ochre. So I'm just going to put a little bit, because I want to work today some wet on wet. So I want to have some of my paintings, some of my pigment ready to go in my dish. So there's my gold yellow ochre, and then some of the MeiLiang cad yellow, get that in there. So that's ready to go. I'll get my green that I'm going to be using. Now, just my go-to green is always, boy, I'm really getting low in some of these, is olive green and sap green mixed. I really like the olive green. It's a deep, warm color, but I do tend to mix it with my sap green. Okay, those are pretty good colors. And then I've also got my paper towel here to blot off. I think what I'll also do is maybe put some of my Prussian blue. I like in my sunflowers to just tap into the very center with that color. I think it's really pretty. Loading the brush from the side, loading the belly. And let's see, what other color might I use? I'll probably use one of the browns. You can either use burnt umber, raw umber, whichever of the browns you like. Van Dyke, they're all beautiful. And we're going to be kind of mixing them with everything anyway. Okay, so there we go. We've got all our paints in there. Here's a little bit darker brown. All right. So I'm going to be creating this, and I do have the drawing for this if you did want it. But I think if you used guidelines, you'd probably be able to draw this. Hold on one second. I have a drip on my paper. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to be using a lot of damp and damp. So let me go ahead and start with my sunflower. Point and using the side of my brush, and then I'm leaving white space in there. So I'm just filling a lot of these petals in, but again, making sure I leave that white space. Point. There we go. There's so many different ways to paint these beautiful flowers. I've painted them lots of different ways, but this one, I'm just starting with kind of my lightest value, and I'm using a lot of the tip of my brush. Put a little bit more water in there. And as you can see, I'm avoiding every other one because this is wet. And if I go into the one right next to it, it will spread all together, and I don't quite want that. And again, I'm leaving those white spaces in my petals. I think that's always so interesting. Really creates the viewer to fill those white spaces in. Now, before I get too far, I'm going to rinse off my brush and go in with a little bit of that yellow ochre in there. You got to be careful. That yellow ochre is really crazy intense. And I just want to drop it in a little here and there. Just adding in some color variety. So this is still kind of damp from me painting in there. And then I'm going to go in with some brown. So right now I'm just using the tip of my brush to go in and spread around a little color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the tiniest bit of whatever that brown is, and let's go ahead and paint the center here. So kind of a light wash. I'm going to say this is probably, maybe, sorry, I was concentrating here. Maybe 30% pigment, 70% water. So just getting these bottom layers in here like that. And there you go. Let's go ahead and I'm going to continue to play with my petals here. Painting these in. So I'm using both the side of my brush and then I go in with the tip of my brush to just create, kind of to shape my brush, my petals a bit. And I'm happy to share this drawing with you. I also have it in my tutorials on Etsy. They're only $2.50, so I kind of look at it as you get a drawing, but you're basically giving me a little tip, a little donation of $2.50. And I don't get all of that. Of course, Etsy takes their cut, but you know what? I'm appreciative. I love it. It helps. Let's get a little bit more of that. Keep working around my paper. And it's okay, you know, have some twists and turns in your petals, have that white space. Let's just tap even in a little bit here. I even have white space in here. There we go. Some gold leaves. Go to this one here. So I'm just filling them all in, but I did give my paint a little bit of time to dry, just a tiny bit, and I am trying to use different values. So I use the belly of my brush to kind of fill in, and then I go back in with the tip of my brush, called the tip or the toe, and use the tip to kind of create some shape. So let me turn this right side up. And then we can go into some of those little petals in the back, mostly using the tip of my brush because that is smaller spaces. So the tip of the brush is really, for me, what I use when I want to kind of outline, shape something. But I love creating my flowers with brush strokes, to be honest. I kind of draw these out because I get asked for so many of you about drawings. So I do draw a lot of these out so that way I can share that with you. So there we go. Look what a beautiful sunflower that is already. Very light, very quick, just plain. And now I'm going to go in with that Prussian blue, tap, tap, tap. Get rid of that extra water. You can also tap onto your paper towel. Tap, tap, tap. And then let's just go in. So see, I even need a little bit more pigment. That was a little watered down. That's what I wanted. I love mixing this color in with my sunflowers. I think it's like perfection for me. I used to have a ton of sunflowers and now I don't have so many. Okay, I actually don't have any. Oop. That's okay. Okay, let's do this. I've got a little bud over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I think a lot of you already have this drawing. I just reused it again because I couldn't find my tutorial, actually, is the reason why I'm using it again. And we're just going to create this little bud here. So there we go. Same type of thing. I'm just filling it in with the belly of my brush. And then I go in with the tip just to kind of define the lines and like that. There we go. So we got all these beautiful lines. Now I will go in and let's add in, go ahead and pick up some of that beautiful green we made. I think I'm actually even going to add a little of that green and going to use that point and then more pressure, open the belly of the brush, point, open the belly and come up. I love that olive green for my... So all I'm doing here is a point press, and these are the little, kind of like the little sepals that come out, point press, and up on the tip, like that, point press, coming up on the tip, and then you can always reshape with the tip of your brush. And I want to add just a tiny bit of brownish in here, or maybe even some gold, like that. And then let's go ahead and do the stems. Tap, 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 point, press and open up that belly to get that nice wide stroke. Look what beautiful strokes this brush uses. Point, press. There we go. Down here. Love that. Now I can touch in with that darker olivey green, just maybe here and there for some interest while that's wet. And if I want to soften this line right here, just rinse my brush, and I've got a damp brush now, and run it along the side there. And that will just soften that line that I created. Just tapping in. There we go. I can even wipe off my brush and then lift. That creates some fun little effects. Just going over with that, also kind of lifting. adding in some darker areas. So when I add in darker areas, I'm using a darker value, just meaning I've got more paint than water on my brush, like that. A little more paint. But when I get a lot of water in my palette, I want to make sure I'm tapping off, so I don't have a huge excess amount of water. And then let's create these little leaves here. So point, and then opening up the belly, picking up some more, mixing my two greens a bit, like that. Look how pretty when they go together. So much what I just love about watercolors. Can tap in while that's wet. And then let's do this brush, this petal. So this petal has it's quite big, so I'm gonna get quite a bit of pigment. Point, press, open up, just coloring that in. Now rinsing my brush a bit, I can pick up. I can go in there with some different greens. Wet and wet while it's still wet. This is one of the reasons I love wet and wet, because you can get all these fun mixes. And look how pretty that is already. So we could go in here and even add some of that gold, and it'll really bring some coherency between the flower on top. I don't mind these little blooms at all. I think they're quite pretty in these type of paintings. I might even try to add some in with drips of water. I think it's so interesting. And I love that effect, even on here. Now I might add in a little darker green here. So I'll take some of the brown, mix it in with some of that green, and I get this really nice shadowy green. And while this is wet, I'm just gonna tap it in and let that flow. And I'm just, while this is wet, kind of tapping in here, but look at all the wonderful effects that we can get when we just really play. Let's play with the water, see what it does. All these beautiful effects. I've got that dark green. Be along here. And then wash and rinse my brush, and just a damp brush, I can feather in that side. So it kind of softens that line. I don't like hard lines, so I tend to do that a lot. The point of my brush here, just like that. There we go. Now we've got one more here, so let's go ahead and get that one. So point, spreading out my brush. And I did leave some white areas in there. I'm gonna pick up some more of that green and maybe some of that brown, just to create an interesting color. And then tapping in while this is wet. There we go. Just just really, you know, so many times I'm just playing. I'm just trying to figure out what I want, creating interesting leaf shapes, using the tip of my brush. And now what I'll do is, this is the funnest part for me, is I love glazing. So I'm going back into these, and over that darker color, the lighter wash, I mean, that we used originally, I go over and I just use brush strokes to kind of create some more interest. And then we're going to do that here as well. So let's pick up some of that gold, maybe even add in a tiny bit of orange. And we'll just add some fun little point press, just fun little areas here to kind of pop out some of these petals. And if you don't like that harsh line, you can always go in with a damp brush and soften that. So I'm picking up that dark paint. Like that. Just darkening some of these little petals here. Might even add in, using the tip of my brush and kind of flicking to create some lines. Just some interesting things here. Just flicking. And then I feel like I want to darken up that inside. So let's grab some of our brown, and then I'm going to use that darker brown that's in my palette, and just kind of go in, and I'm going up on the top of my brush handle so I can have a little bit more wiggle room, and kind of go in and create some little areas. Maybe go in with the sienna color, or even gold would be really, really pretty. Let's use some of that gold or yellow ochre. Put that in there. Maybe a little burnt sienna. And go in and lay that down. I am trying to keep some of that white space in there that I really like. And then maybe even that Prussian blue, because I do really like adding that into my sunflowers. It seems like I remember when I was growing these, they had a lot of this dark blue in them around the edges. So there you go. Isn't that pretty? And if I even wanted to pull some of that out into my petals, I just wash and rinse my brush, really pat it off so it's barely damp, and I could just push and pull. Love this technique. So I'm just going into with the tip of my brush, and look how beautiful that is. Just not too wet. You don't want it too wet at all. And I just barely touch the tip. It's just so lightly damp. And I go around the edges, just touching barely into that brown. And it creates this beautiful spreading. And there you go. Last thing I want to do is this little flower here. So I'm going to go in with a darker value, meaning more paint versus water, and go in and create a couple little interesting petals here sticking out. But I don't want to get rid of too much of that light color that was in there. So there we go. I hope that was fun for you to watch. We could always go in here with some of that dark color if you wanted to add a little detail. And just draw in here. There you go. And I think I'm done. I think I'm pretty happy with that. We could always add in more green up here, like some of these green petals. Not green petals, green is coming out, because I know mine in my garden always had kind of petals coming out everywhere, to be quite honest. Sticking out. They were pretty full. And I think that adds a little bit of interest to this too. Something like that. All right, friends, I hope you give this a try. I'm going to make this a tutorial because I've had so many of you asking for my sunflower tutorials, and I just hadn't had time to do them, so I'm kind of excited to share this one with you. I hope you enjoy it, and it will come with the drawing, my colors that I use, and some little tips that follow along with the tutorial for you. All right, everybody, have fun, smile, enjoy most of all, and thank you so much for being here with me. I will get all my supply links for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Have fun. I started my camera back up because I thought of something I meant to do and I forgot. So I'm just using this, is actually my brush. I hope it comes out this summer. It's an 8 round, and I'm just going to go around with my brown and kind of add some little, I'm using just a flick with the tip of my brush. Just add a little bit of lines here just for interest. I think that makes it a lot more exciting, and I am using such a light touch on these, just spinning my paper around. And I feel, typically that's what I do with my sunflowers, and I kind of forgot. So I wanted to hop back on real quick and show that to you, but I feel like it makes a pretty big difference in them. Just adds that little touch of detail. And then I'm just adding in some shadows there. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you because I think that does make a huge difference with these, just to add in that tiny bit of detail. All right, everybody, thank you.